We've all heard the recommendation that it is important to drink at least 8 glasses of water a day. But it is also important that our drinking water be reliably free of contaminants, and it's certainly good when it tastes better. Ken Jackson is the general manager of Aqua Plumbing and Air, and he's here to talk about the importance of water treatment plants. Great to see you.
Yes, I'm glad to be here.
I think we sort of all take it for granted, perhaps, that our water is safe and good. How do we actually know if our municipal water is okay?
So all of the water suppliers in the United States are required to meet EPA standards. Those standards are always changing, but basically they deliver a product. Their responsibility to the last outlet is to provide a safe drinking water component. So basically they do a lot of things along the way to get it in good shape, so it's going to get to the last outlet. In Florida, the water temperature the air temperature is so hot that it affects the water, so they have to add ammonia and chlorine and other things to preserve it to the last point. And so that gets it there safely, but because those things are happening, a lot of things happen where things go from liquid to solid in your home, on your shower doors, on your fixtures. Those are how things that you can see. So their challenge is they have to, no matter what's happening with the source of the water, they've got to get it there safely. But there's a lot of things like, taste and odor and all kinds of other things that happen along the way.
I feel like a lot of us who've moved here from other areas notice that our water is different, and it makes sense when you talk about additives due to temperature and things like that. So what can we do in our homes in terms of water treatment to ensure safety and also improve taste?
So there's a lot of basic things that you can do. A lot of appliances have filters and things in them in refrigerators, and they basically deal with color, taste, and odor, so they take all the aesthetic things out of the water. But you really need to go to some sort of a stronger or finer filter to be able to make it healthy, to affect your health in a healthy way.
Okay.
So we have all kinds of different things like reverse osmosis. A lot of people use reverse osmosis. It's basically pushing water through a really fine filter, which pulls out 99% of everything.
Okay.
And if you have an issue with sodium in your diet where you can't have it, that's why people use reverse osmosis. But a lot of people would prefer to have just a filter that would screen it very, very small. And when I say small, half a micron. It pulls out any contaminants and a lot of times leaves a lot of the good minerals in the water, so it tastes better. So different people have different preferences. But the main thing is that just because it was delivered safe to your door doesn't mean that it's going to be safe, because let's just say you live in a large condominium building and you have copper piping and solder joints from the 70s. You have all of this water that's in there deteriorating that lead and everything in the main water supply, and you really don't have a filter on that whole system. So it's important that you have one at least for drinking, and people that they might be allergic to the byproducts that are in the water. They might be, allergic to things that irritate their skin and those type of things.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of times in a building that has a condominium they might not have space to put the equipment. So most of these small systems will go underneath the sink. They'll provide you with a tap that's pure, and they also can go to your ice cubes or your refrigerators for drinking water.
You mentioned showers. I thought that was really interesting. Are there whole home systems that can be installed so that every bit of the water coming in is treated?
So one of the things that you do, so we know that there's chloramines in the water. That's what got it to your house safe. So the first thing you would need to do is get rid of the chloramines, the ammonia, and the chlorine out of the water. So a carbon filter, a large carbon filter, will take care of that. And if you want it to maintain itself, so usually it's called a backwashing filter. It would clean itself out every so many thousand gallons. And then the second process to that would be to put it through a water softener. And that's going to pull out all of the heavy minerals. When they measure water, it's measured in grains hardness. So our main water that's delivered from utilities is going to be anywhere from 9 to 12 grains hardness, which is pretty hard.
I was gonna say, that's considered hard, I believe,
Yes.
right? You can tell that on your hair in Florida.
Yeah, so what's going to happen there is if you basically want to remove that, because that's going to be all the things that are going to actually be going from the liquid form to the solid form that you see on your glasses, on your
So why our dishes don't look clean coming out of the dishwasher and spotty.
and your clothes, your laundry, and even your shower head. If you look at your shower head, it's going to be, usually there's a bunch of crud on there, and those are all the things that are oxidizing in real life in front of you. Okay, so those things can all be, if depending on what you want to invest to solve the problem and maintain, those things can be handled by testing the water.
Very interesting. I mean, certainly not only for our health, but also all the other things you mentioned and our major appliances and whatnot. I assume Aqua Plumbing and Air both selling and installing these systems as we choose.
Yeah, so we have guys that are experienced with testing the water to figure out, because well water is obviously going to be different than municipal water. It's going to be a lot more things in the well water. And if you live in a rural area where you have well water, we still have a lot of those. It takes a special application to make it happen and to maintain it so it doesn't become a problem in the future.
All right, so we've got to ask questions of the experts, and that you certainly are. All right, a lot of great information. You don't have to be satisfied with the water in your home. There are things you can do to improve it. For more information about water treatment, contact aquaplumbing.com. We'll be right back.
All right, guys. How many people were here for the first PFAS seminar we had? A bunch of people. Okay. And how many people are doing water treatment right now in your companies? Okay. So I wanted to show you this is because, first of all, there's a lot of interest in this. Okay. There's a lot of, people in our area are from all over the world. I mean from all over the world, right? And if you lived in Connecticut for 50 years and moved here, you can't understand why your water heater doesn't last 20 years. If you came from Lake Michigan or whatever, you don't understand why the water smells like it does. So people don't really know what's going on, but they know that it's not what it used to be when they're growing up or whatever. And so, that's going on. Now with these contaminants that we have, it's the contaminant, the PFAS problem it's PFAS, PFAS. There's like 3,000 different contaminants that are plastics or they're breakdown of components that were originally designed to be really good, like Teflon in your pans. Firefighting foam has a bunch of byproducts that they're called forever chemicals because they don't dissolve. They basically end up back in the water supply. So the situation is that they've detected all of this all over the country. They're finding it a lot worse in places like military bases, textile plants and places that have heavy chemicals and stuff like that. But we have it everywhere here. I was on the website today looking because what's happened is that the EPA has basically said that within 5 years' time, which is like a year gone by already, that all of the utilities have to get a handle on the contaminants that they have. So they've given them like 5 years. And I think I have notes here on what it actually is, but they basically are allowing, it's like 4 parts per trillion gallons. So 4 parts per trillion gallons, that's how they measure it. And basically I looked at this website today and I went down the list, I looked at, actually the best water in our area is actually Manatee County. And it's probably because they have so much water source, reservoirs, because most of the utilities are pulling from wells, and we have Peace River. There's a lot of different things that add up to it, but when you're pulling from the wells, obviously you're going to be pulling stuff straight out of the ground, and then that water has got a lot more issues with it. So they've been doing, they're required to report this everywhere, and what's going to happen is I'm sure this standard's going to be tightened up even more because this is like the starting point. But basically what I want to impress on you is that in 5 years' time, it's going to be such a situation that people are going to be requiring it everywhere. So if you're like in a school system, for instance, you think of how many drinking fountains and places that people can get water. If you're in a hospital, or you're in a clinic, or you're in almost everywhere, it's everywhere, and 40 years ago everybody's drinking out of the hose, nobody cared about it, but now the situation is that it's going to accumulate in your bodies. And not only is it accumulating in your bodies, they're actually finding it in the sewer plants. So they've actually, just like when we had COVID, they were finding COVID, and they knew where the hot spots were because they were testing the sewer plants. Well, guess what? It's all through there, which means it's going through people's bodies, and it's in the whole cycle. So what I want to try to show you tonight is some of the situations that are occurring and then some of the ways to deal with it. One of the things that's going to happen is that all the filter manufacturers are getting certified to deal with it. I mean, there's a million of them, and there's a lot of different ways they're trying to do it. But basically, it comes down to micron size, okay? And let's see if I can move this thing like it's supposed to. Okay, so what we're going to talk about is where it comes from, where the water comes from. Basically, the water we have, right, is the same water we've had for thousands of years. It's basically, it goes up into the clouds, it comes down as rain. The ground used to be the filter, but now we have some other things in the ground, so it's picking up along the way. So this process is getting contaminated as it goes. In Florida, we got a lot of limestone, which is good in a way because we don't have, it's basically neutralizing the acidity and the problems that we have. But most of the utilities around here are, what they're doing is they're pumping it out of the ground, they're sending it up into a water tower, they're aerating it, because they're trying to get rid of the hydrogen sulfide that's in the water. Just like if you were in your yard and you use your irrigation, there's a lot of, especially in the shallow wells, a lot of hydrogen sulfide. First thing they do is they get rid of that, and then they end up treating it. And they add all kinds of stuff to it. They add things to stabilize it. I mentioned the ammonia and chlorine, the chloramines they add different things to, depending on what they have to offset, but they're adding things to it, and they're trying to get it so that when it comes to you, that it's not going to be green or having problems. If some of you have been in some of these neighborhoods that are out east that don't have enough people out there yet, and they got a big problem because they can't get enough water moving, so everything they put in the water doesn't last. They've had to inject ammonia in the water, and they actually have, if you go out some places, they actually have zone valves on fire hydrants that continually discharge to try to move the water out there. That's because people were getting sick in their houses because the water, it basically had no protection anymore. We actually, about 10 years ago, put a system in, and we actually had to take it out because they didn't have enough chlorine in the water, so the carbon filter before the softener was getting greened up, slimed up. That's a sign that something's not right, right? So because all this infrastructure is built to build out east, but they don't have enough people using the water out there. So it's critical when if you're in like a suburban area where there's a lot of people, it's really not a big deal. It's almost like if you go to some of these cul-de-sacs in the summertime, and you find that everything's rusty in the cul-de-sac, and it's because there's only one house that's here that's using the water. It's all steel, and your fire hydrants are all steel, and basically that iron is basically sitting there, and it's not moving. So it's one of the things that's really important is that they can keep the water moving and they can keep it safe. It's 95 degrees. Things are going to happen if you don't have the protection to it, right? So the utilities have a huge responsibility on their hands to get that water to you safely. So EPA sets the standards. I told you they've finally set it, and they're basically saying that in 4 more years they're going to end up fining the utilities if they can't clean the water up, right? But it's everywhere. I mean, I went through this list and I saw Hillsborough County, it's above contaminant level. Basically, Charlotte County, it was above contaminant level. A lot of places, and there's like thousands of places that have problems. So that's going to cost a lot of money, but they're providing water for the public, so they're going to have to deal with it. But it's going to come down to where your customers. It's almost going to be like when COVID was here, people were just freaking out, right? I can't touch these. We can't have people touching these faucets. We got to have infrared faucets. We got to have, it's going to be the same type of frenzy because it's going to be their kids that they're sending to school aren't getting protected, right? So it's going to take people like us that can go in there and say, here's what you should do. This is how we're going to help you. This is how we're going to do it. And the thing about this business is it's not just once. It has to be maintained, you know, and it's like you can't just put something in and walk away from it. This is a commercial water softening system. This is a residential. This is the typical RO. Now ROs have come a long way now. I have different ones here to show you, but basically this is a canister type where you actually take them apart. The way that they're really designed to work is to give you so much water without having to do maintenance. Okay, so what you have is you have a pre-filter, you have a membrane, and you have an after filter, or basically a post filter. The first filter is like critical because the first filter is the one that's got the carbon in it, and that's what's going to keep the membrane from getting damaged. Okay, so basically when we're trying to set this up for our customers, we're trying to say, how can we give how much service are they going to need on this system, right? So basically every year we got to go out, we got to change the pre-filter and the post filter. The membrane will probably give you 2 years for average residential house without a problem, as long as you protect that. If you don't change that pre-filter, then it's going to end up getting to the membrane, and the membrane is not going to be any good. Okay, and you can test an RO with a TDS meter and see if it's got TDS or not. It's the easiest thing to do right away to look at one. But if you think about it, people buy houses all the time. People move here. They have no idea how long this has been in their house, right? When you ask somebody, hey, when's the last time your filter was changed? They're going, oh, yeah, it was. And you go look under there and you'll see it. Somebody put a date on there and it's like 3 years ago, you know? So my point about this is that it's not just, you got to, as far as your business goes, you need to keep track of this, right? Because people don't keep track of themselves, right? And so this is a real basic system. We have them here. They basically, you take them apart and you got a pre and a post, and like I say, you change that membrane every 2 years. So it's kind of expensive, you know, for the customer, because it's going to be at the second interval, they got to have them all replaced, right? But that way you can guarantee, and some people, it's more important for the animals' water, believe me, than it is for their water. Like some people are like, Fifi can't have bad water, you know, so everybody's got a different hot button as far as what's important to them. But what I was getting at with this is the cartridges that go in here. You can't touch these with your hands, okay? And most people don't realize this, but if you don't wear gloves to put these in and you put that in the water, you're probably going to grow something on there. And the other thing is, if you have on your membranes, they're usually tested before they're packaged. So you want to make sure that when you're storing this stuff, it's not like in a hot shed somewhere, that it's in air-conditioned space, okay? Because this stuff is critical. I mean, years ago we used to touch them with our hands, but it actually causes bacteria by touching them, okay? This is actually the water's passing through it. So if you're dealing with this style, that's kind of what you're forced to deal with. The newer styles, they have snap-in cartridges that you don't have to touch. So you just basically, you're still changing your pre and your post. And by the way, when it comes to reverse osmosis, you can have like eight stages. There's a lot of things you can do, but you can't, if you put like 8 stages of filtration, you can't come back there once a year. You got to come back there like every 6 months. Okay, so online, if you look, there's like all this new stuff that they have UV lights on them. They have, we have them the tankless. This one right here, it doesn't require a tank. And the reason on an RO that you need a tank is because they only make so many gallons a day, because you're really pushing the water through a really fine membrane. So a typical one might make 7 gallons a day, but then you might have a gallon tank that's a buffer, so that the average person's not going to run out of it, and tomorrow it's going to take over. The newer styles that don't have a tank, you can get like 60 gallons a day off of them, okay? But they got their drawbacks. What's nice is you don't have a separate tank under the sink, like all the space that takes up. It almost looks like, like a computer, but basically it has 2 cartridges that pull in. But it's a space saver, and it's more expensive, but it has some issue. They have drawbacks. With this type of filter, you don't want to use like on a well system, because you want to have fresh chlorinated water coming into the system. So if you're in a well, you don't have that. so they don't really operate very well on that situation. Actually, Charlie knows that, right? So, so there's all this different technology, but the idea is you really need to, when you're screening water, the RO screens the water like really, really small. In fact, I have a number here somewhere. It's really small.
Before you get to that, I want to ask you a
Yep,
question.
sure.
And so you run into a system that sat for a little while, looks pretty new, but somebody sold the house, it sat for a year, and can it be renewed by just changing those filters
Yes,
out?
yes. So what you want to do when you don't know, especially if someone has no idea, you want to clean everything up, you know, so you can, they may actually make cleaner and stuff like that, that you can do it. But basically what you want to do is just restore it and get it back to new and then put all new stuff in it. You really don't want to guess, because like I said, people just don't know.
No, I just start over.
Yeah, they don't know. So you can, and but I mean, if you're really going to go, if you want to reinvest, like if you got this kind of style in there, the newer style are really nice. You know, you get some of them create more water per day. There's a lot of options for you now.
Let's consider the old style.
This is a standard. They call it a sump style, where you actually have to put the pieces in. The new ones all just snap right on there. So it's much easier, less issues. I was going to talk about what the size. So reverse osmosis membrane screens 0.0001 microns, okay, or they call 1 nanometer. A human hair is 70 microns, okay. And you really, if you remember back in, I think it was in the 90s, there was a big outbreak called cryptosporidium, and it was up like in the Great Lakes area, and a lot of people got sick, okay? But if you had a filter, that's when Everpure became pretty popular. Everpure back then was doing water for the International Space Station, had a lot of credibility. Anyways, people that had that, it screens down to a half a micron. That's one of these right here. So basically, it's not going to take out sodium like an RO would, because if you have a medical problem, you really probably need an RO because it's going to take everything out. A lot of the ROs actually have like an alkaline filter they put on there to make it taste better, because it stripped everything out of the water. So it's like, that's kind of like the water's kind of dead or flat tasting, right? So the alkalinity will help it taste better. But a filter like this is a cartridge you put in. It's rated for like 300 gallons. It could probably go a couple of years in a home. And what it does is it has like tea bags inside technology that has carbon, and it grabs everything. It's got a lot of heavy filtration. It gets heavy. When you take one of these out that's been in a couple of years, you're like, whoa, this thing's got some shit in there, you know? But it really, I mean, it gets better and better, because basically what happens, eventually the flow shuts down, right? So then you have to change it. So this is the kind of thing that's right now, it's certified for PFAS and a lot of other things, cysts and all kinds of other stuff. But, you can put them on a water cooler. They're kind of clumsy because they're big. And that's the other thing we got to deal with. If you go to some of these fancy places that have these, high and low water coolers that you can't see anything, everything's like behind the wall. Well, you got to find a place to put this stuff, right? And you got to service this stuff. So that's going to be a real issue. But you'll see, like we have where I used to work at Accra, we have these on our water coolers. They're all hanging there, and you can service them. Not real pretty looking, but a lot of offices and businesses too. So this is like more of the inexpensive way to handle it. Okay, and again, if you're some person who really doesn't want everything stripped out of the water and you want protection, this will do it for you, But there's, like I said, there's a lot of options when it comes to that. But the main thing is, when you're dealing with these trace chemicals and things, you really got to have the micron. You got to be small. So you want to at least get down to, that's a half a micron, and then this one here is like really, really small for RO. Okay, but so the other thing that happens with the RO, which most people don't realize, is that you're also wasting water while you're making it, right? I think the old ones, you get you might waste 3 to 4 gallons every gallon you make, but now they've got them a lot more efficient, where it's maybe you might lose 2 gallons for every 1 gallon. And there's a lot of options coming out. But whatever you're going to design for someone, you want to make sure that they're going to get some value out of it, right? So like I said, you could have 8 stages. There's these new systems, they have like 8 different cartridges on it. That'll never last a year. Okay, yes, it'll be like scientific water at your house, but you will be back there because all of a sudden nothing's coming out of the faucet anymore, right? The other thing I wanted to mention about this is that you want to make sure that you have a separate filter faucet too. Okay, a lot of people are like, why can't you just hook that to my kitchen sink? The way that these systems work is by flow, and they have a slow flow, so they can grab everything as you go. If you put that, number one, if you put like an Everpure on your cold water, it'd be gone in like 2 weeks probably, right? And the other thing is that you wouldn't be happy with the flow coming out of your faucet. And why would you waste all that filtered water just for rinsing dishes and everything? So, you know, part of the system is we start talking about a lot of things you can do for people, but you really got to think about you got to have the micron protection. When those people all got sick up there in the Midwest, it was the people that had the right filtration were exempt from it, and people learned a lot. And it can happen like that because by the time they figure it out, it's too late, you know. So that's a little bit about reverse osmosis. We talked about the emerging. I was going to show you here. This is actually the reports from every year. You can get a report from Sarasota County. You can go online and get it. It's always like a year behind, but it actually will show, and all the counties have it in their public record. This is Sarasota County's. This shows you where the water comes from, and then it also tells you what the problems they have. I mean, they have arsenic. They have a lot of problems. Think about these wells. If you go down in Venice, they have a bunch of wells down there. You go out all over the place. They have wells. This water for Sarasota County comes from all these different sources. It comes from the Carlton Junior Water Treatment Facility. It comes from University Parkway, Jacaranda. 20% comes from Manatee County, and 76% comes from the Peace River. So Sarasota County has a lot of wells, but they also have a lot of other. They got rivers, and they've got Manatee County Reservoir that they're buying their water from. So, and every area is different. You know, I don't know that much about Charlotte County, but I see that they got some pretty bad water down there. So, and I know Northport's got some tough water too. So everybody's got a little bit different. That's what's going on.
The Halo 5 system is certified to take out PFAS, and that's like a 5-micron system. Is there positive and negative ion exchange? Is that a way to take the microplastics out as well as the micron screening?
I mean, I'm not an expert on that, but I do know that most of the systems will take most of it. But when it comes to the drinking portion and the safe portion, it's going to have to be smaller than the 5 microns. I mean, I would not, almost every system that we would put in, you would have, no matter what your situation is, whether it was a well or whether it was municipal water, the last thing you want to have is whatever is the drinking system that's going to protect you.
So the NSF certification for those must not be for all.
Unless it requires to have an RO with it at the end, which is what most people have. So I really don't know the answer to that. I know that that's a newer filter. That one thing is they never had a filter that was really a softener. They were just demineralizing it, right? And a lot of people install them because they're easy to install and they're easy to sell. But now they actually have it's certified for removing hardness out of the water. Because before, people used to complain that I got this spaceship-looking, filter, but I still have spots on my shower doors, and it's not really that clean. So I'm not really sure the answer, but most of these you want to end up having something for protection at the end, okay? And when you're thinking about what your customer needs, it's really about the micron size that's going to really protect them in the long run. And I'm telling you, there's going to be, I'm glad that, we got a supplier here, because these guys are experts at it, okay? And things are changing and things are emerging fast, and there's a lot of companies with different, they're getting certified so that they can handle the demand. It's probably a lot different this year than it was a couple years ago, right? So there's a lot of stuff happening. When it comes, especially with well water, guys, if you guys are in a situation where you're treating well water, and I can just tell you this from experience, you don't want to cut any corners when you're dealing with well water. Because number one is well water can change. It can change, in 3 months it can change. Tannins will come and go. All of a sudden you have this water, you're like, who peed in the water? Where did this come from? It came because of the ground supplies are moving. And so you need to, if you have tannin in the water, you need to have the right media in there to deal with that. Otherwise, you're going to have a fouled system, right? The other thing is, if you don't size it properly, and this is one of the things that people do all the time, they try to cheat on it. When you're dealing with well water, no matter where it comes from. You have boggy water that are, in areas that are really bad, and you have some that are pretty good, and some don't have that much smell, but it can change. So what you want to do with well water is you want to deal with someone who's experienced, and especially with your supplier, they're going to help you, walk you through, and make sure you have the right media and make sure it's the right size. Most well water, we have to treat it somehow, whether it's injecting with chlorine or injecting with hydrogen peroxide. And what that does, it oxidizes all the stuff, kills the bacteria as it goes, it oxidizes it, and then you can use your water treatment to pull it out, right? So, but that's a lot of work. If that pump quits, your system goes down, right? If you didn't know that tannins was in there and it shows up, it's going to screw up your system, right? So you have to, when you're dealing with wells, it's really good. I'd go to Aqua Wholesale and say, hey, this is the water I have. What do I do about this? And they're going to say, what does it look like? Does it smell bad? Whatever. And then, come up with a system that's going to be reliable. Because if you're selling it as your company's selling it, you want to make sure that it's going to work, right? And the other thing is, almost all of our well systems that we've worked on, we got to go out there like every 3 months, maximum, right? It seems like a lot, doesn't it, that you're going to see your customer? But you know what? If you don't, you're going to end up coming there someday and it's going to be bad, or you're going to get the call saying that we can't live in the house because it smells in here or whatever, right? The other thing we have to think about when we're dealing with wells is that the house piping itself might have bacteria in it already. Like, you could put a brand new system in today, but if you don't sterilize or chlorinate the house, your problem might be in the house. You might have a nice system outside. So, and we have situations like that. We've had them. And it's when you find out, it's like, what do we got to do? We got to fix this, right? So there's a lot of things that can happen. But when it comes to wells, they're a little bit more complicated. Sometimes some of the well water is not that bad, but we do have a lot of hydrogen sulfide, and we do have a lot of other aesthetic problems. Some areas have arsenic and lead and other problems. But for the most part, we still have a lot of well systems. So as far as this business is really good, but you don't want to, with wells, you just don't want to cut any corners, and you want to make sure that you size everything properly. You can't really oversize it. And today we have UV, we inject, I mentioned hydrogen peroxide. Hydrogen peroxide does the same thing that chlorine does, but it's a lot easier to deal with. It doesn't plug up your pumps, and it doesn't mess up, right? But and the other thing is it disappears faster. So when it goes in, it basically does its job and disappears. So there's a lot of things you can do, but wells, you don't want to mess with. And this is what the utilities, how they're getting the water to you. And this is just Manatee County, Sarasota County, sorry. All right, so these are the things that are going to be in the water that we're getting surprised with. The PFAS, 3,000 different ones that are out there. They haven't even got them all named and numbered, but basically the two main ones are PFAS and PFAS. And when I went through the reports today, I wanted to go see all around to see what was reported. That's the most that they're finding. But like I said, in the next 5 years, they're going to be a lot more, and basically where they have done treatment, I read there's 2 places, New Mexico, and also they're doing it in New Jersey, and they've actually made a huge difference, like in a couple of years' time, by putting treatment in. So, it works, but it's really the government's responsibility to take care of the wells that's supplying the water. What a lot of people don't realize is that even if you have good water, sometimes it's coming from bad piping is bleeding into the water. It'd be like if you have, we're going to start talking about water, bottled water and stuff like that. If you have a bottled water and you have it in your truck and it's in the sun, that plastic is deteriorating. Most times you can taste it in the water, right? It's deteriorating. A lot of the plastics now, like the Fiji and stuff, they're putting much more of acrylic or harder plastic so that doesn't happen. But that's happening in our systems. We got plastic pipe, Blue Brute everywhere, okay? So, like I said, it's a lot of times you're getting contaminants. I mentioned on the interview I had with ABC is that a lot of these condominiums, guys, you got 3 and 4 inch pipe full of water, okay, cold water through the whole building. They've got nothing on that building because it's going to be a $100,000 system to put a water softening system on this condo. And we actually, our company did that, and it takes like 2 years to get a sale on that because they've got to figure out where the money is, and then you got to get the equipment. It takes a big deal to put it in. So most big buildings like that don't have that. If the building was built back in the 70s, you can be sure there's lead solder joints in there and everything like. So what does a person do? They got $1 million condo, and they're sitting there going, yeah, I got this beautiful view of the bay, but you know, the water sucks, right? So what most people want to do is have some sort of protection. Again, I brought this one just to show you because this is just one idea, but this is called a monster filter. And this is really designed where you can't backwash. Now most of the systems that we have, you know, every so many thousand gallons they backwash and clean themselves out. And that's kind of like the approach. If you can get it to clean itself out, it's going to maintain itself and it's not going to get dirty, right? This system here, the way it's designed, it doesn't have any backwash. It basically just has a cartridge that gets removed. So once a year you pull the cartridge, clean it, put a new cartridge in, and it's a yearly thing, which is pulling out some lead and some crap that's in the water, but you still need to put a reverse osmosis or an Everpure or something for their drinking system. But if you live in a condo, that's a pretty good option for you because chances of the condo is not going to put the system in to protect you, right? And you're getting regular city water that's coming in there and is sitting a long time in those buildings. So this is called the monster filter. This is just one approach. Most of the modern condos that have drains and stuff, you can backwash and you can put equipment in there that will actually clean itself out and it's not that much danger. But if you don't have a floor drain where this is going, you probably don't want to have anything like that because it's dangerous, right? And then whatever you do, you got to be careful for liability, right? Because you put something in and you got a 1-year warranty on it, but then if it floods 10 floors, John Morgan's knocking on your door, right? So that's part of making a good decision on what's going to work for them, but and what's going to be a liability and what's not. But people really need this stuff, guys. They really do. I mean, they don't have a choice most of the time, all right? And sometimes it's not a matter of money. It's like, where's it going to go? Is there any space for it, right? So that's why if you do it as part of your business, one thing that I would say that you would need to do is if you're going to do a lot of water treatment is you need to train your technicians on what to look for, okay? And we got some technicians here in the room, people that have worked a long time. Technicians aren't going to talk about something they're not comfortable with. It's just the way it is. I've been the manager for a long, long time. If you don't know your subject or you just feel like you're going to say the wrong thing, you're not going to say anything, you know? So part of your business, what you need to do is you need to be training on people how to deal with, how to answer questions. Just that the reason I showed you that interview is that it's basically simple. We live in a place that's very hot and you got to do something to protect the water that's coming to you. But that has side effects. Some people don't care, and some people do, right? The only way you find out is ask questions. Just like, if you walk into a place and there's a 11-year-old hot water heater, that's a sitting duck, right? It's 11 years old, right? Water heater? It's a sitting duck, I call it. It's just, it's ready to go, and you're going to be this person tells them that you want to do it today because, the neighbor water's coming out the front door over there, and they got, they're restoring their house. So my point is that when you start seeing stuff, you can ask questions, and you say, is this important to you? If you wanted to go into someone's house and you go in there and they got a Prius in the garage and they got bottled water stacked up to the ceiling, what's that, Frank?
It's an opportunity.
That's an opportunity, right? Because those people are hauling water that's heavy, okay, and they got it in the plastic bottles. So basically what you can offer them is a bottled water maker in their house. If you have a system like this in your house, it's making water, you can fill every bottle that you want, you can take it in the boat, you can do whatever, but you don't have to haul the water, and it's protected, right? So certain customers, you can tell that they have certain things are important to them, so you have to teach your techs, what to look for, and but really it starts by asking questions, and if we have a lot of junior techs and people that are starting out as technicians, they don't really want to go say the wrong thing, but they learn how to ask, how long you lived here, do you see this right here? This is from the water. Think about toilet repairs. Why do we have toilet repairs? Because the ammonium chlorine is so strong that it's tearing up all the rubber parts in there, right? So I get just a point is that it's most people, if they came from some other place, they don't understand what's the cause of it. They just know that it smells like the pool, and and I guess that's safe. So my point is that if you're going to do this and you're going to grow your business, because it's going to be, people are going to be calling you, it's going to be a demand, and you're going to help make people safer, and you're going to have people's lives better by knowing what the best thing to do is. All right, let me just show you a couple more things here. This is a regular water softener, okay? And this is a Clack water softener, but there's a million different manufacturers. But everybody pretty much around here uses this valve because it's really sound. And then this is the brine tank that goes next to it. So the way this thing works is it basically has a media inside that pulls, it's basically magnetic, it pulls everything, sticks to the media, and then when it gets to a certain gallon setting, depending on how many people are in the house and everything and how bad the water is, and it basically goes into regeneration. 2 in the morning, it flushes itself out, it pulls a little bit of salt water from this tank, flushes it through and reverses the cycle and cleans it and starts it all over again. It's basically simple. So the best thing if you're gonna the best thing for the customer is gonna be something that has a micron protection for the drinking part of it. But depending on everyone that's on municipal water has what's coming by, Venice, Charlotte County, Manatee County, Sarasota County, you're getting what's given, right? Which is basically, it's got at least 11 grains hardness in it, and it's basically showing up in their houses. So the best thing you could do for someone would be to put a carbon filter in first. That's going to pull all the chloramines and stuff out, and then the softener will make the water really easy to work with for the laundry, for the clothes, for your hair, for all that stuff. And then the third part is going to be whatever filter you're going to have for the drinking, and usually that's under the kitchen sink, right? And you can hook your ice makers and stuff. One thing that customers don't understand, and this is something that you can help explain to them, is I mentioned in there about color, taste, and odor filters. Every refrigerator filter that you see is just garbage, okay? It doesn't do anything. It basically pulls the aesthetic stuff out of it, but doesn't, for your health, it's like most, even an ice maker filter that you install is like a 5 micron filter, right? But all of the refrigerator filters are that or worse. And so that's why it's pretty easy. If people understand what's going on, you can put in some sort of a system, whether it's RO, whether it's Everpure, or whether it's some other filter that screens, and then run a line from there and hook up the ice maker and bypass what they're actually using, or they'll leave what they have because what they have isn't doing anything anyways, so that they have good water, okay? I wanted to mention a couple of resources for you too. I mentioned you should have your techs trained because they should learn about what they're looking at, and the more that they know, the more comfortable they'll be, no matter what it is, if they're selling anything or they're giving information about, could be toilets for that matter, but with water treatment, it's just really understanding what's going on and what the options are. And generally, there's always someone that you can turn to that has the experience, that's been there before, to get the rest of the information. The other thing is, as far as resources go, we have the Florida Water Quality Association is a tremendous association. So a lot of people that I know, in fact, I met Jeff, through that, but it's a really good organization. It's local, and they have a lot of training. They do a lot of things like how to take stuff apart and put it back together, dealing with problem situations and stuff like that. And the other one is the Quality Water Association, and that's a national group. They have training, certifications. A lot of our people at our company have been certified through that. You can get, tech, certification. You can get sales certification. You can get advanced certification. The reason I'm mentioning it is at the end of this month, the convention for the year is going to be here in Florida. It's going to be in Miami. It's like the 28th to the 30th, and that's the Water Quality Association of the United States. It's huge. It's a huge convention. There's a tremendous amount of stuff you could learn if you could go there. the way that they're testing water is changing. The way that that people are giving people options is changing. There's a lot of things, and with these emerging contaminants, everybody's coming up with better ways to do it. Okay. One question that kind of baffles everybody is, so let's just say that we have a filter and we've been taking PFAS out for 3 years, and now we're going to throw the cartridge away. Where do we throw it away? Landfill? Yeah, just have them kick it in that brown barrel and take it to the thing, right? Nobody has an answer for that yet, right? Because that's going to be just as contaminated or more contaminated than maybe what's in the neighborhood, right? So there's a lot of things that are going to happen, but I'm telling you that the awareness, it's kind of, people are gaining awareness now, and they're the ones that are demanding the government do something about it. But when it gets to the point where they're measuring it, and the statistics are out there in your schools and in your neighborhoods, that it's going to be at a critical level, right? So that's why I'm saying you should pay attention to it, and you should learn as much as you can, because it's going to be a huge need. And who's better to do it than the licensed plumber? The other thing is, one thing you got to remember is that this industry doesn't have a licensing requirement in water treatment. Okay, it's something that's really weird. It's there was, back in the 70s, there was a senator that was a huge water dealer, and he got a constitutional amendment that said that you didn't have to have a license to do water treatment. It's been that way since then. Okay, here's the problem. If you put in a system and it's permitted and you're doing it part of your plumbing job, guess what? You got to do everything by the book, right? Because of who you are and what you do. But not everybody does. Now, most of the people that are dealing with the reputable wholesalers and stuff are doing things right, because you only have your reputation. If you lose your reputation, you're done. But there's a lot of people out there who don't, right? So and they're putting this stuff in. So it's really important that we know that this is coming, and it's a situation that we can take advantage of, and we can be the professionals that help the situation. Tom, you want to come up? Last part we're going to do is just show you a few things with some of this water, because not all water is the same, no matter what it says.
So I get to do the fun part, right? I've done this presentation more times than I care to admit. While I'm doing this, right? So this is RO water. Came out of one of those canister type filters, the 3 that you need to change, right? So we're just gonna play around a little bit. We're talking about TDS, what's in the water that you can't see, total dissolved solids, right? So one of the ways to do that, right, is to use electricity in water. Yeah, that sounds like fun. So this essentially is a glass tube with 2 copper rods that go down through the middle, right? And the only thing that's kind of missing is the filament that goes across the bottom. And so we're going to try to make a filament with what's in the water. So a lot of people kind of look at that, they do this in front of a client, and they're like, what the hell is that, right? Oh, why is my water lighting up? That's weird. If they had that problem at home, nothing would happen. So you can see that through the RO water, it's filtered down to what Ken, I think you described it as
0.0001, really small.
1 millionth of a micron, right? So there's our sample. We know that that's the good water, right? That's the good stuff, the stuff you want to be drinking. Anybody in here use any of these? Anybody?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So let's see what hotel water. You guys all been drinking this.
Some guys drank beer, they were smarter.
All right, listen, if you're going to drink any more water, drink it now. All right? Because after this, unless the light bulb burns.
No, it didn't.
You sure?
Yeah, positive.
All right. So, the better the connection at the bottom, the brighter the light bulb, right?
Yeah. And it's
You
this
do
far
this
apart.
At somebody's house as a junior tech or as a plumber, they're going to go, okay, what do I need to do to fix this, right? And then the amount that it takes to make this happen is even more astounding. Remember this one? there was nothing, right? I'm gonna, you know what? I'm just gonna take, only like 3-4 drops. You see that? Parts per billion, right? So we still, well, oh, no.
You just contaminated your good water.
Right? Remember he said you can't touch it with your hands when you change the filters? It's fine, right? That's why. So let's pick on this one.
Yeah,
And I'm
Fiji
picking
water,
on this
expensive one.
Because of somebody that I know that drinks this water religiously, right? This is supposed to be the best stuff. It comes off the mountain, the volcano in Hawaii or something like
Fiji.
that. Is that what it says?
Yeah.
Yeah, Fiji.
Mineral water.
That's your first clue, Tom. Fiji.
There you go.
He has a standing, he
Well,
has an order for that.
You would think that that's the case, right? But this one says Saratoga, but I think that, I don't think it's from New York. We'll figure it out. Which one do we do here?
There you go.
This one? This is Fiji? There you go. Fiji lights up like a,
Hey, one of the biggest contaminated areas in the whole state's in Zephyr Hills. You know what they do in Zephyr Hills?
so, you know, we could go through each one of these, right? And pick on whatever the favorite thing is. But I will tell you that, and I'm gonna point back at you because I know you've heard this. You go in and do a presentation for somebody. One of the plumbers will go in, right? The plumber will go in and he'll do one of our plumbing maintenances. And he'll go, oh my goodness, I found this, and he might make a couple recommendations that say, maybe you should change this out or change that out. And then at the end, perhaps one of the reasons why that's happened is because we have kind of crappy water, right? So they make a recommendation for the sales guy to go out and talk to the customer because they don't understand it all, right? It's not really super difficult to understand, but once you get the gist of it, you got it, right? So the sales guy goes out, does his thing, and the people go, oh no, we don't want any of that.
Water filtration specialist.
Water
Don't say
filtration
sales guy,
specialist.
shit, you just scared half the customers away.
You know what? You're absolutely right.
Right here it says consultant.
Right. So they come out and then the customer, the client, potential client says, oh no, we don't need that, we use bottled water. And this little $6.99 light bulb thing takes them right back to where they go, okay, we need something. Another way that they measure,
What's in
total
what?
dissolved solids, stuff that you can't see in the water. We don't have the chemical with us to do this test, but there is a chemical where I can take a glass of water, right, and I put first reagent in, and basically what that does is it stains anything that's suspended in the water. The second reagent that would go in, it's called a flocculant, and it takes and gathers it together and drops it to the bottom. If
How
you
long does
took a
that
cup
take?
like this,
Takes like 10 minutes or something?
it's like a 15-minute test, right?
And it shows you
But you
everything's in
can
there.
visually see what's in the water. And it's scary, guys. It's scary. A glass this big, full of water with that test in it, would render almost as much as what you see in this cup right now. That's where the total dissolved solid part would be. So, TDS, measured in parts per million. So this is the RO water that I contaminated with 3 drops. It's at 27 parts per million of total dissolved solids. That can be anything, any of those, the combination of contaminants that Ken listed, right? This is the Fiji water. Fiji water, 127 parts per million.
That's good.
Hotel water, we didn't test this yet. Hotel water, not too bad, 86, right? Drink up.
So I want to mention one other thing.
Well, is that from minerals too, though? It's not.
Some
just-
of it
I
could
mean,
be
certainly
mineral.
not from the plastic from the water.
No, it's definitely making a bond though in there. Guys, one of the most important things that you can do for a customer would be protecting their tankless water heater. There's millions of gas tankless water heaters out there, right? Every single one of them needs protection, because if you even look at if you look at Navien or any of them, it will say if it's over 11 grains hardness, there's no warranty, right? So most people, when you sell one, are going to say, I just put it in, hey, it's great, it's going to be great, and we're going to need to come back and put an acid through this, right? So Navien itself makes their own filter for it, right? They believe they last for 3 years. You can pulls all the minerals before it goes into it. But the best thing for someone who has something like that would be a softener, because you have a softener in your house and you're softening everything in the house, right? But there's a big difference between putting in, a $1,500 filter and putting in a $3,000-$4,000 filter. But everyone needs one. And one thing you got to remember about a tankless, it's a 20-year product, right? Think about that, 20-year product. Not if you don't take care of it, right? So when you put in tanklesses, a lot of people want to get rid of their tanks because it's, they get instantaneous water, it just runs continuous. But if you don't take care of that, that's a $4,000 or more investment that's going to fail, right? So there's an option for you to put in, what do they call, peak flow A or whatever that they make. But that's an option that they actually need it, but whether they want to spend the extra money, but they really should, right? And if they knew all of this about the water, they certainly would do it, because I'm sure they're going to change the oil in their Mercedes, but they just don't recognize that this is an issue. So it's something for you guys to know that that's a big investment, and it works great. It's hanging on the back of the house. It works great every day until it doesn't, right? The flow wheel's gone. You look at it and go, I can't even save this thing. I'm not even going to put any acid in this one because it's probably not going to even work. So tankless water heaters are a great thing to talk about, and it's a great thing for even the techs to say, hey, are you doing anything about this? This is $4,500 installation over here. You might want to think about protecting it, right? And we can't even get people to do the annual flush, so it's pretty hard. But certain people, though, it's important to them, but they don't know. My whole point is about the water is like people don't know. And they're from some other place. They made their money, they retired, they want to live happily ever after, but they don't want their dog to die, and they want you to tell them what's going on. Why does my shower head look like that? Because the water's doing its thing. It's protected you to this point, right?
So let me ask you this
yep.
question. So if you've got people that don't have a lot of money and you want a protection of the water, what about these britters and shower heads and stuff like that?
So
do they do any
no,
type of things?
The britters and those that are a joke. They're like a color, taste, and odor. There are some shower heads that have what do they call it, NDF or whatever. They have a component, but they don't last. They don't, 2.5 gallons a minute.
Well, no, I'm just saying,
they won't last.
People that can't afford these systems and stuff like that.
A lot of people put those
literally
shower heads on, but for ladies with hair, they're spending $400 a month treating their hair and getting it colored and everything. But the truth is that most of them aren't rated for the amount of gallons that are going to go through that thing. Right. So, but a lot of customers still do it. But they really would be better to put something in. I mean, if they even put a carbon filter in. Oh, that's another thing I should mention. What I talked about was I'm a backwashing person. I want to take care of it. I want it to take care of itself. I don't want to have to deal with that. A lot of dealers today don't think that way, because when you put in a carbon filter that backwashes, and you put a softener in, and you put a reverse osmosis in, that's a pretty expensive system. It could be $5,000 to $7,000, $8,000, who knows? But if you put in a big blue, he's got one back there. A lot of dealers, what they do is they put a big blue in to take care of pulling the ammonia and chlorine and that stuff out, and then they put the softener and stuff in. Now, here's the thing with that. You can't go all year without touching that thing again. But if you're a dealer, you want to go see your customer every 6 months. So that's a cheaper way of selling a system. A lot of guys sell a lot more systems that way. It's just a different philosophy, but it's something that needs attention. So either the customer has to be ready to change it when the pressure drops off, or worse, it gets green or whatever. But that's what some dealers do instead of putting in the fancy stuff. But my idea would be, just like your pool or whatever else, you want it to pretty much take care of itself as much as it can. So George, you have a question?
Yeah, you tested the one filter, but you didn't talk much about the Everpure. How do those tests work on Everpure filters?
So the Everpure filter does not remove any of the sodiums and a lot of the minerals remain in the water, which is why the RO water that we use
Right.
didn't light up, right?
Right, would
So-
it light up with the Everpure?
Yeah, I will.
It
I mean,
would
isn't
light
it
up.
all right to have minerals in the water though?
It's, if you like the
Just depends
taste
on
of
what they
water,
are.
right? If you like the taste of water, that's where all the taste comes from. Right? I don't know if you've ever had a dry water before, but if anybody wants to try it.
That was vodka, I think.
RO water,
Pretty sure.
Sometimes when you drink it, you're like,
Well, that's why they,
and you
that's,
end up drinking a lot more water, which is
but that's why they
really
put
good
an
for you.
alkaline filter a lot at the end of a lot of ROs, just to give it the taste back. It just, because people rule it, people like, well, I know it's pure, but that tastes like not good.
Okay, so from a medical standpoint, when we take everything out of the water and you don't have those minerals, we've seen people get major headaches and get sick because they don't have the minerals anymore.
Yeah.
Now you have to add like a trace mineral or something in a supplement form.
Yeah, so that's why these ROs today, they're making them overseas, they're making them everywhere. They have all this different process. You can pretty much have whatever you want. But as a dealer or a plumber, you want to put in something that's going to last for a certain amount of time. You don't want to be having to go out there more than once a year. That's a lot even for most customers. A lot of snowbirds, they have every year come back and refresh that thing. But that's why a lot of people do use like an Everpure, because it still has the minerals. It does have the micron protection, so they know you're not going to get sick off anything. But it's not pulling everything out. And if you went to the doctor and he said you got a problem with sodium, he'd say you need to have an RO. But there's certain people, like different people are sensitive to different things. Some people are sensitive to the chloramines, where they come down here and within 6 months they're show me your rash. No, thank you. But yeah, that's, everybody's different.
To answer your question, I live on a well, so I have an RO system, obviously, because I have to. And I know I'm not, the membrane's supposed to last, I change mine every
You have a
year
softener
just
too?
because- Oh yeah, I have a softener, peroxide injection, contact tank.
Sulfur
I am air. Can't tell us, me? I got a better deal.
Yeah.
He wanted to jerk me up, I was kidding.
He was a backdoor
But-
deal.
So I put it all in, and my wife hated the taste of the water. She's like, no, I'm buying bottled water today, because I hate the taste. It's dry and tacky.
Can you get different post filters?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And
It's just,
different types of
it's just an
magnesium?
inline filter, and it adds a little bit back to it,
Okay.
and now it tastes great.
We have a whole house RO system. What I noticed when we moved down here, I used to never get cramps. And it just dawned on me, because we had a well in Pennsylvania, and we didn't have no system or anything on it. I'm not getting the minerals that I used to get to keep me from cramping. I would get a terrible cramp.
So most people that have a situation like that are on a restricted diet already, or they're on some sort of a diet that removes some of that stuff from their diet or adds more in. Most physicians, and the physicians that we built alliances with here in Sarasota, would actually recommend, I actually put a couple of these systems in their office with flyers that said, if you're interested, put this in. But from your perspectives, I would sincerely suggest you talk to your physician about diet, changing your diet, because the amount of trace stuff that's in there and the amount of water that you consume, unless you were like, a water buffalo, drinking 300 gallons of water a day, it shouldn't really make a difference.
Frank?
So I was shared with you, I've had a couple near-death experiences, and I've asked some physicians. And one of the physicians said something very interesting to me. And they said, well, her opinion was that you get your hydration from water. And if you define water, it's hydrogen and oxygen. None of those other minerals are in the formulation of water. The calcium that's in the water is not the same calcium that's nutritional. That was her opinion. You could ask another doctor and they give you a completely different opinion. But
That's because they're practicing.
yeah, you're the guinea pig and they're practicing on you. But
I like the idea of the post filters and having different types.
Yeah.
I used to do a lot of triathlons, and you're sweating all day, then you're working out. I mean, too many hours. And I found out I got so tight because I was so dehydrated, I could not hydrate enough. And I was drinking. I have a Everpure. What I found was is I have to mix in, they have packs. Pedialyte.
Electrolytes and yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of, every time I'm pouring water, I'm putting, it's a packet, you just split it and pour half of it in there. It's, scratches another one and liquid IV, but I always have something in the water, I don't care if I'm at home or whatever.
So, but you notice, like, when you get behind on hydration and you're highly active,
My legs
you
tightened
can't
up,
catch
I
up.
could not bend over.
You can't catch up.
I thought I had a back problem, I was a tightness problem.
Yeah, I was going to say, are there any other questions? Otherwise, we're going to have Robin come up and
What are the pros and
talk about our
cons of
sponsor.
putting a carbon in with the softener?
What's that?
What are the pros and cons of putting carbon in with the softener?
You really want to have the carbon filter doing all the work before the softener has to do it, because everything's being oxidized as it comes into your home. So if you have a carbon filter of any type, that's going to pull most of it's going to make the water easier for the softener, and the softener is going to work a lot less. People that just have softeners without any pre-filtration they do a lot more work.
A carbon bed in the softener canister with the resin on the
So that's a good point. So they call that a mixed bed media, where you have, he's asking, can you have both in one unit? You can, but usually you can only have like a cubic foot of carbon in there, and that only lasts so long, okay? But if you have like a 70, 80-year-old couple in a house, and they want to have protection and they don't want to spend a huge amount of money, that probably will work for them. But basically, it only works till as much as the carbon can absorb, okay? The other thing is when you're buying carbon, there's different kinds of carbon, believe me, okay? You want to use what they call coconut shell carbon. It's a much higher quality carbon. It lasts longer. And when we have as much chloramines and stuff that we do here, your system's going to last longer. I don't know what a carbon filter is supposed to last, as far as being effective, if they're being cleaned and everything. I'm talking about a backwashing one where you're going to expect it to last 4 or 5 years or whatever. So there's different carbons too. So coconut shell carbon is better, and there's a lot of different grades. And I'm not a professional as far as knowing what they are. That's where I would get with Aqua Wholesale, and they'll tell you, because you're going to have a better system if you use better media. Yes.
One quick question. Now, like the Big Blue and like these filter systems here, people go up north 6 months. These things are out in the sun, no water going through them. Is that a good idea to come down before they come down to flush them out?
Yes. You can also, most of them today are set on meters where they actually, if there's nobody there, they're not cleaning themselves out. You can still get them with timers. So if you have that situation, you can put it where it goes every so often to do it. But yeah, absolutely. If it's sitting, especially if it's sitting in the sun and nobody's using it, that's where you're going to get growth and you're going to get problems, especially direct sun. Plus the equipment's not going to last as long either.
Yeah.
So the other thing is when you're going to put this stuff in, you're going to need electrician, because almost every system is going to need a GFI outlet to plug into. So that's kind of something you got to know, because when you go out, if you look where their water main is, you won't find any power there, I guarantee it. And it's going to be $350, $400 to get it there, but that's something you got to have. And now the other thing I was going to mention is some of these fancy ROs they have today, they take power. So the standard stuff, it doesn't take power. It uses just the regular technology. But a lot of the new stuff, especially if they have UVs on them and stuff, you got to have power. So when you look under your kitchen sink, usually you got one for the dishwasher that's dedicated, and then usually the other one's on a switch. So you're going to need some power there too, right? But it's just something to know. And if you're going to get into the business, you just need to take it slow and and learn as you go. And just make sure that you're trying to use quality stuff and that you do it properly, and then you're not going to have problems with, John Morgan. You want to talk about the sponsors? We had 3 sponsors that sponsored the meeting today. Also, Aqua Wholesale is here in person. The 2 others couldn't be here, but we do thank you very much for supporting us. And no, they didn't.
Do you guys want to come up and talk real quick about the stuff you guys have?
I'm Jeff with Aqua Wholesale.
You don't need, okay. Okay.
And I've got Camille here with me as well. And we're in Sarasota. Everything we do is custom. A lot of the stuff that Don went through today, we can address any of it. We can build you a million different systems, but we'd rather not overwhelm you. Get some water samples, and let us design you a really good system. We brought some stuff for PFAS, on the table here today. We've got systems that will treat PFAS from under the sink to a whole house to an even larger commercial application. ROs we have, that one might look familiar to some of you guys that might sell a Halo RO. We have the same RO. A lot of you guys sell Halo systems. I sell the same one. A lot less money. Testing kits, LED UV systems. We got a lot of cool things on the table over there. How many guys install ROs? You drill your sinks, you drill your counters and everything? Because we have a system over there that'll allow you to use their existing kitchen faucet instead of a glass.
Oh yeah, I've seen those.
So that's pretty cool. We've been selling a lot of those. But come on back and talk to us, or stop in the shop. We're right on Cattleman Road. And again, everything we do is custom. We'd love to help you out.
All right, guys, thank you so much for coming tonight. The other one we had 2 other sponsors.
We did. And real quick, you guys, I dropped some surveys on your table. If you would take a minute to fill it out, it's more for what kind of training might you guys want or like to see that we could bring in for you. I know it talks about how our presenter was tonight, but we all know Ken was amazing. But don't feel like the need to fill it out. But if there's something that you guys would like us to bring in, something you'd like to see, something that you might help, just go ahead and put those down at the bottom. And back to our sponsor. So of course, Aqua Wholesale. Most definitely stop when you guys go, grab a business card from them, reach out. We appreciate their time coming here and doing this for us tonight.
GNC RO Manufacturing, they basically make whole house ROs. So the water that's really, really bad. Water, they make a really strong system. Matter of fact, Aqua Wholesale actually carries their system.
Yeah, they're really great.
And they're really, what it's nice is they have a water-cooled submersible pump. A lot of this components break down. They have a system that's pretty tough, and it's pretty durable. If you have to have a whole house system, I recommend that kind of a system. And the other one's Safety Zone Water Systems. I've never met them, but they are, where are they down south?
They're in Ocala.
Oh, they're in Cala. Okay. Okay.
They
Yeah.
sell so Safety Zone, just to give a quick mention about them, Safety Zone sells to a lot of your plumbing supply houses, like your wind supply,
Okay.
Hughes, things like that. So they cater to the plumbing supply house, which then obviously a lot of you buy directly from them. So
Okay.
that's where they'll get their equipment.
Again, we appreciate the support. And like she said, we're always looking for better ways to educate our people. And there's a lot of topics, so that's what she's asking you to help us out. If you have some areas, we're doing some gas training, and we're doing, next one I believe is for hiring people, right? Hiring the next generation.
Yeah, the next one, it's the workforce shift, recruiting and retaining the next generation of plumbers with Jim Cosma. I don't know if anyone came to our soft skills training that we did, that was Jim Cosma, so we're bringing him back. And these flyers, as you leave, they're right out there on that table if you want to grab one. But definitely the Gas 101 and regulator training, very cost effective if you want to come to that, bring all your guys. And then the recruiting one as well. And then after that, we're doing water heater efficiency and upcoming energy requirements with Bradford White. So that's going to be in July. So I think that's pretty much about it. Once again, thank you guys for coming out. Really appreciate your time. And, we kept you out a little late. So
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
All right.